Great evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast, sponsored by the Empower Perspective community. We are your hosts for this evening's conversation. I am the coach, Dwayne Dwyer. To my left, I'm sorry, that side. To my left, right, is the Uncle Junior himself, Mr. Garfield Martin. To my right, the son of Timothy, aka Tawami, Mr. Tawami Gaddy. Below me, I have rolling down the street, Minister Roland Walker, and to his left, or his right rather, you have across the table with Christopher McClellan, aka Christopher McClellan. Gentlemen, welcome to this evening's conversation. How are you guys doing?
And I'm doing
I am,
great.
yeah, I'm well.
Looking
I'm
forward to
well.
it as always.
Great.
Yes, sir.
I love
Ready
it.
to roll.
I love it, man. I love it. Listen, shout out to everybody in the chat. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody who was listening, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on Twitter. If this is your first time, by all means, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and share this with somebody else because trust me, I believe this is going to be a great continuation from last week's discussion. Now, last week's discussion was all about identity. However, tonight we're talking about relationships. And the topic from this conversation is going to be functioning in dysfunctional relationships. Now, this is what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to beat the chat down because we need your feedback on this type of conversation here because I think this conversation is going to be on fire, lit, as the younger generation like to call it, right? Listen, I also want to say this as well. It is cold outside. Make sure that you check on your loved ones. Make sure that everybody's okay. Make sure that everybody has heat. If they ain't got no heat, man, listen, help them out. Do something. Help them. I'm just trying to tell you. And I just want everybody to be safe as we deal with this winter storm. We ain't used to this in the South, y'all. Just gonna tell you the truth. And for all y'all Yankees, stop telling y'all this. Stop telling us it ain't cold. It's cold outside. All right, gentlemen, we're going to dive into it again. Welcome to the chat. Welcome, Michelle Ray. Welcome, Cassandra. I see you. And welcome everybody else who I have not seen, but trust me, I will speak to you real soon. Okay, with that being said, we're going, like I said before, we're going to talk dysfunctional relationships, right? And going forward, just like I did last week, what I want to do is I want to make sure that we put the definition up because the definition for dysfunction still carries over into this conversation. Now, again, last week is identity, this week is relationship. So just imagine being in a relationship where the norms of social behavior are regarded as bad. And the prefix of dis meaning impaired, difficult, abnormal, or bad within itself. So now, moving forward, because I want to make sure that we have a great understanding, gentlemen, I am going to turn it over to you and I want you to share with us when you became aware of relationships, like what it is and how you are to behave within the scope of a relationship.
All
I'm
right.
I'm still learning. I'm not gonna lie to you. I am still learning. I used to be clueless. Now I'm starting to get bits and pieces of what it's supposed to be, but to be in a relationship and to act to be in a relationship that's beneficial to both parties, I have no idea. I sincerely
Hmm,
don't.
hmm,
I say for me, reflection on failed relationships, uh, both dating, marriage, friendship, all the above. Had some failed relationships, and you know that concept of live and learn. I think you that's where that part of not becoming the victim in your reflections of situations. I get there's some things that may be your fault, that may be their fault, but in reflection, I think it's important not to be a victim in reflection. And I had to sit back and just reevaluate what they did, what I did from a place of learning. Because to be honest with you, as a growing up, no one really took the time to show us or show me, what I knew what a man's function of working and work hard and get your hands dirty, but not how to treat a woman or how to survive crucial conversations and relationships and stuff like that. Uh, so that's things that I learned along the way and understanding scripture later on in life.
Nice.
I would say I started getting some relationship awareness where I really understood things more in depth. Um, within the last 5 to 7 years. I would say I got bits and pieces of it growing up, doing my marriage and stuff, the first marriage, but things didn't really come together until, like I said, within the last 5 to 7 years. And then within the last 5 to 7 years, I was able to look back on some healthy relationships and even some relationships that may not have been healthy or had some dysfunction in them. However, at the same time, I could still see some good things in the relationship. My parents' relationship, I saw that. There were some good things, there were some bad things, but I was able to pull out the good things. My relationship from my first marriage, some good things, some bad things. I was able to extract the good things and the positive things that work well. And then, like I said, in the last 5 to 7 years, I've been able to put all of those things together to kind of come up with a whole lot better, interpretation, I guess, of what a healthy relationship looks like now. And I would say that um, some social media helped out with that. One in particular, the Godfather Kevin Samuels. So if we want to get into that later on, I'm more than willing to. But for
We
right
know,
now, I'm gonna pass the mic.
we know you are, sir. All right, go ahead, gentlemen.
I think I've been aware of relationships for about about 10 years now, about maybe a little over 10 years. And where my avenue of approach when it comes to relationships is all relationships should be treated in a similar manner, whether it be a work relationship, whether it be a husband, wife, a son, daughter. And when I say treated the same or similarly, it's you are in a relationship and you must know your part and their part. Because if you don't know how you benefit them, and how they are supposed to benefit you, you are in a dysfunctional relationship and it'll never transpire to go anywhere. That's why you first must know self. And when you know self, you know what you have to offer. You know what you have to offer to everybody. So, because there are some relationships where you can't stand the people, but you have a need and they have what you need. So you foster a relationship to make sure you get what you need and it works for you guys. And I think that's where people think, well, I can't stand them, and I can't. You ain't got to be able to. You don't have to like people or love people in order to have a working relationship. You just need to know I have to work with this person. So in order for me to not be a hothead with this part, I won't allow what their shortcomings is or my shortcomings to filter into the relationship where it messes up what we're trying to accomplish.
I like that. You know, we're going to dive into that because you said
Please.
some key things, and I think it's important. Um, Chris, you already gave your response, right? Or do you want to add something else?
I guess I would have to second what Roland is talking about when he says that you don't have to necessarily like the person to benefit from the relationship that you have with them. You just have to have a mutual respect for them and an understanding that, okay, you got what I need, I got what you need. Let's work the transaction, and let's not forget the extras.
Yeah.
I figured that out about I'm gonna say 2 years ago when I was working for a black-owned company, and the woman supervisor really didn't care for me because I was doing my job to a superior level. She kind of got intimidated and started trying to find ways to sabotage. And I'm like, why would you try to sabotage something that, one, you don't even own, and two, we're supposed to be working together at? What is your problem?
Yeah.
Get out the way. Move.
There it is.
Like, move.
Get,
We
get out
got to
the
we got to
way.
do it, man. We got to make a shirt for Chris that says "Move." Um, he- I like where you guys are going with this because I think um, I think our responses are pretty similar. I, to be honest with you, growing up, no one ever taught me, about relationships. Right? I just watched them and just try to mimic some of the things that I've seen. And some of the things were good, and some of those things were bad. And I'm talking relationship. I think Cassandra, you asked a perfect question. I'm talking relationship holistically. How do you exist in a space with somebody else, whether it's a family member, whether it's your friend, whatever? How do you exist in a space with somebody else in a cohesive manner to where you guys have the ability to coordinate and collaborate? That's really, in my mind, the thing that should be, that we should be looking at. And so when I look back, sure, I got the instructions that you got to share, right? But we only did that whenever mom and daddy was around. Whenever they left, we went back to get minds, and minds. And I think what, for me, if I'm being completely transparent, I think what ends up happening is that we take that mindset into our adolescent years. So we take relationship as minds. So whatever's in the relationship is supposed to serve me. These people are supposed to serve me, and I think that's literally starts a bad cycle of exchanging people out for this thing that Chris liked to remind us of all the time called ego. Our ego gets in the middle of the possibility of outstanding and amazing relationships. And as I reflect, I think it was Uncle Junior or young Timothy who said it. It was probably about 7, 8 years ago when the light bulb tank came on. For me, I would say a little bit earlier than that. I would say probably about 13 years ago. But at that point in time, it was too late. I was on a downward spiral and trying to correct some of the things that were broken for years. Well, might as well just go back to the drawing board. And that's where I was with it. And I think the idea of understanding relationships has to be something that is taught in the home. I said it, and I'm going to keep on saying it, that the home is the training ground for young adults. And if we look at that any other way, then we're missing the mark, and they're going to have to go out there and figure it out on their own. So now, as we start to move forward, and again, listen, if you're listening, go ahead and share this. Go ahead and hit the like button. I appreciate those who are already hit the like button, but go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and share it for those people who you know that need to hear this because this conversation is all about relationship. So moving forward, gentlemen, just like I mentioned last week, I gave everybody example of the butter knife, and we use the butter knife for several different things. But the butter knife was created to spread butter. So that is the functionality of a butter knife. When it comes down to a relationship, what do you perceive the functionality of a relationship to be?
I think it's not just one thing. I think it's a bunch of different things. One is one is companionship. I think that it's okay to at least for me, I think companionship is one of those things. Um Part of my purpose in this world is to be a husband. So with that, I need to have a wife, and it's a whole lot easier when you get someone that you're compatible with and that you guys get along. And you have good chemistry and just companionship overall. Like companionship is, I think it's overrated. No, I mean, I don't think it's overrated. I don't think that people um think about it enough or think about the importance of companionship. Like we a lot of time people, oh man, I like to have a dog just to have a dog. Yeah. Where like a companion or like a husband or a wife is like more than that. You know what I mean? It's like a dog times, on steroids times a zillion. You know what I mean? If you're with the right one. So I would say just starting off, I ain't gonna hog up the mic for the whole time, but I would just start off with companionship is one of those functionality things.
To me, the primary function of a relationship, and I'm speaking from a utopian mindset because, like I said, I'm still learning what a relationship is. I have absolutely no idea how to actually function in one, but from my understanding, a relationship, no matter if it's man and woman, coworker to coworker, mentor to mentee, teacher to student, It's supposed to be so that the both of you can build something bigger than the both of you. It's supposed to be bigger than y'all. It's not supposed to be, I'm doing this for you, so I'm better than you. It's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be an unhealthy competition. It's supposed to be two people or a group of people that's trying to build something bigger and better than what they already got. Thank you, on a common goal. But the common goal can't. The common goal isn't a selfish one. It's
Mm.
it's a common goal that everybody benefits from. At least that's my thinking.
I'm with you, Chris. I'm definitely with you. But and I got one word, and I hate when I get on here sounding like a preacher, but whatever. Uh, but I got one word, and it's called multiplication. Because when two come together, you are to multiply no matter what. My role as husband is provide. I provide, I give wife. She multiplies, makes food. She multiplies a house and makes a home. She multiplies kids and make grown adults functioning adults. So it's all about multiplication. And that's the same in any relationship, because in relationships, we have to have a common goal, as you said. And when we have said common goal, we function together to make it happen, and not just make it happen, but to make it happen so that other people can see from the outside looking in and say, man, I want to emulate that. That is a positive relationship. Or if it's a dysfunctional relationship, I don't want that. So when you have a relationship, you multiply what you have so that it can be seemingly a beautiful thing for somebody else to pick up and say, man, if I do it that way, I can have the same result.
Now, unlike these brothers, I don't have a lot of answers. I don't have nothing
That's the,
profound to
that's the
say.
setup.
I'm learning too,
But
brother.
but hey, me and you, we right here today, right? But I could tell you what is not, and Chris said it earlier. It's not about selfish ambition. A relationship is not about who I can build the strongest financial companionship with, because when the money dwindles, then where does the relationship go? It's not about who I can build businesses with. It's called a part. That's called a business partner, not a spouse, or you know what I'm saying. So when we talking, because most of us answered in the aspect of marriage, right? So just sticking there, like that's not the purpose or the functionality of that type of relationship. As far as I'm concerned, because I look at everything for me, I think I look at things in a broad spectrum of community. That the functionality of that relationship is to build and empower that community. However, we break that down is different, but yeah.
Hey, listen, I love what you guys are saying because I think, taking bits and pieces from what everybody's perspective of the functionality of relationship kind of puts us in a different way of looking at things, regardless of what anybody else is thinking out there. And again, I'm looking at a lot of these messages in the chats, and I'm seeing a lot of things. Lisa Keys, I see what you're saying. I want to introduce that thought later when we start talking communication, because I don't want to start off talking about arguments right now. I want to talk about the functionality. Like, what is the purpose of a relationship? And I like what these guys are saying. I want to introduce a word to this conversation, and that word is symbiosis, right? When you look at the concept of symbiosis, you got two people coming together, right? And they're working within the confines of a space to where it is beneficial to both parties. So when we look at it from that perspective, I think that's one of the things that relationship is all about. Now, what is the defined benefit of said relationship? Well, it all depends. If we're talking about a working relationship, within the scope of project management, we put teams together for a particular purpose. So if I put all of these gentlemen on a team and I take them through the stages of team development, and their job is to gel as team members for the sake of this thing that they're supposed to be creating. Well, what you're going to find is that through the stages of team development, they're going to experience some anxiety through the forming stages, right? And then they're going to go through storming, and then they're going to go through norming, and then they're going to hit performing. By the time they hit performing, hopefully at that point, they've already created the thing that they're trying to create, and then they are going to have to adjourn. Once they adjourn, they go through anxiety again because they develop a cohesion amongst all of them. So that's the key that we have to understand. Newsflash, every relationship goes through that. And if we do not understand how to manage ourselves within the scope of storming, then that's when conflict at that particular point is at an all-time high. And that gets after what Lisa's talking about. Like I said, we'll address that piece a little later. But again, the idea of relationship is symbiosis. When we achieve symbiosis, it is beneficial for all parties in the relationship. Now, if we just take that statement and look at it from an umbrella concept, I think everything that everybody said, it literally fits under that umbrella. It's beneficial to your friend, it's beneficial to your sibling, it's beneficial to your spouse in some shape, form, or fashion. I think sometimes what ends up happening is that we look at it from a different perspective. And that perspective that we tend to look at it takes us to the other side. And what ends up happening is that we go from functionality to dysfunctionality.
Mm.
So now, when it comes down to dysfunctions within relationships, what are some signs and symptoms within those relationships that do not lead to symbiosis?
I think sometimes in relationships we try to understand relationships without understanding partnerships. Because if you look up the word partner and you do the etymology, you'll see that the first part of it is part or partition, which is a divider. And it's a divider of one thing. And within the relationship is one thing that's divided between multiple people. So you have to have your part, and I have my part working towards the whole. And when we have a goal for the relationship, if I'm not doing my part, it becomes dysfunctional because now I am counterproductive, or I'm working against the relationship. I'm working against the partnership. Whereas we agreed upon this, and yet I'm not pulling my load. So the other half has to compensate because there was no understanding of what the said job was on one part. So I think we must first understand that what is the partnership about? What's the goal of this whole thing? Because if we don't understand the goal, we're going to be dysfunctional from the jump. And then if you don't understand your part, you can't just agree to it. Say, okay, yeah, that's my partner in crime. No, if you my partner in crime, you got to be willing to go down. You can't be in there. They give you some sugar cookies and the high C, and you're telling on.
You got to bring the diabetes to the conversation, huh? So let me ask this though, because I'm liking where you're going. So if a person is not working up to their end of the agreement, right? Can I bring it to their attention? And
Yes.
then, I just want to ask because I think sometimes, well, no, you're good, Chris. Everybody laughing at Chris. No, he's right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
you can.
Okay, so how does that work? Because what I'm seeing right now is that it is very difficult in the space of conversation for you to let somebody know of their shortcomings within the agreement. So how do you do that? How do you do that in such a way that the other person isn't offended?
That's difficult. That's difficult because it's and here's and I think I said this on a previous show. To speak runs the risk of being offensive. I could say hello to somebody the wrong way and they can be mad. So I'm just going to be honest with you. Hey, look, you're doing this, but this is where I need you. Can you do that? You got this locked down, but I need this because I can't do what I'm doing and that at the same time because I got this to deal with. Can you help me? You understand what I'm saying? I guess speaking from a utopian mindset, you would have to put it in a way that it doesn't feel like it's an attack on that person. You understand what I'm saying? It has to be. Yeah, it can't feel like an attack on that person. It has to be, hey, I need this from you. Can you do that? Thank you. Not, hey, you not doing this. Blase, you're a horrible person, and you need to pick this up. Like you can't. You have to be conscious of how other people will take you, but you also have to convey your point and be honest. And understand that you being honest is good for the whole partnership. It's not just about you. It's not just about me. It's about us. And I need you to do this for us because I'm doing this for us. It's bigger than us. You know what I'm saying? It's bigger than me and you individually.
Definitely. And one
So I
thing
guess
about
that's where it would start.
and shortcomings, if I'm falling short in a situation, I know. And I don't want it to look bad. And usually it's pride when you come to me about it. And I can't humble myself. That's why you have to be a humble person when you dealing with other people because you don't know it all. And if somebody comes where you know you were falling short, and true enough, they shouldn't just come and dog you out. But that's why you got to have a relationship with that person in order to convey that. Because if you just come and dog them out, it's gonna hurt their pride, hurt their feelings. Then they like, oh, I knew he wasn't no good, this, that, and the other. But if you come and say, bro, you come on now, is that good enough for us? Is that what we're working towards? But when you put yourself in it with the person, it feels better. When you say something like, bro, we trying to go here. And what you producing really ain't getting us there. So how can I help you with this? When you add yourself in that, then it seems like a partnership. Like, okay, I'm letting this person down. So now I don't want to let this person down. So I have to step me up.
Yeah. I'm playing the antagonist today. You guys know that, right? I'm
Hey.
just gonna keep adding fuel to the fire because I got more to come. Go ahead, Uncle Junior. What you got?
Yeah, I was looking at, like you said, can you tell the person? Absolutely. You have to. You have to know the person. You have to know yourself. You have to know, like Roland just said, you have to know, you have to have that relationship. So you have to, if you have a strong relationship, or if you have a good relationship, you're going to know how to best and most effectively communicate what you need to with said person, whether it be the husband or to be the wife. So yes, and Coach has mentioned it over and over. You have to be comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations, and you have to get good at it. I've heard him mention that too. And because the reality of it is that sometimes if we are not tuned in, or if that person is not communicating with us, they may be going through something, and maybe that's why they're kind of falling off the wagon a little bit. You know what I mean? So, and it could be something that they're not addressing with you because maybe they feel like you have a lot of things on your plate.
Mhm.
So I think it's, when you do address something, you have to be careful, and you have to, like everyone has said, you do have to understand that everyone has feelings, and you have to have a relationship with that person and understand how they communicate, so you can go and have that uncomfortable conversation with that person. And like y'all said before, bad news don't get better with time. So you got to go out and have it.
Just to say Uncle Junior
Man,
smile, by the way. Go ahead, young Timothy.
man, y'all gonna have to start letting me go first, cause if I can sound,
Hey, I thought y'all was
you
learning today. I was like, man,
know what
I
I
now
mean?
feel like I got to be put
Yeah,
on the spot.
I mean, I gotta sound profound, but after y'all talk, yeah, I'm over here like James Brown background singers.
Hey, look,
Yeah,
I asked
yeah,
Roland. I asked Roland to do all the notes, so he shared the notes with me before the show.
There you
I
go.
just been copying off
man.
his paper.
It's,
I'm just reading. I'm just reading Roland's notes. That's all.
real talk. Nah, but I think everything everybody said really comes down to I'm gonna do like Roland. I got one word: selfishness.
Mm.
Reason why we can't have critical conversations properly because I'm selfish. I'm coming in here to get my goal uh, accomplished in this conversation versus coming to understand what's actually breaking down. I came to tell you what's breaking down and not working for me, not for us, because I think like we started off, we don't have an overall concept or goal of what is our function. Each relation and we could talk about the common arguments that relationships have, but not
Right.
every relationship has the same function
Right.
because none of us are the same. Y'all wives are not like my wife, and vice versa. And I'm not all the way like y'all. We got some commonalities, that are cultural, but individually we're all different. So my relationship function in this community is different. Or period, it's just different of what our set goals are or what are we trying to achieve. So when we begin to have these conversations, we got to be honest to whatever what is our overall achievement that we're looking for in
Right.
this conversation we're about to have and overall, because is it worth blowing up about this? Is this thing that big and important to our overall goal
Yeah.
that we're willing to have a blow up and destroy our relationship or whatever the case may be, change the dynamics of our relationship? Because some arguments can change the overall dynamic of how you operate day to day,
Right.
depending on how bad they get. You
See,
know, so
I love it. I love it. And again, I want to make sure I address everybody in the chat. Always great to see Charlotte Jordan. I mean, we just look forward to seeing her. For you guys who don't know, that's Uncle Junior's mom. So shout out to
Mama
Charlotte Jordan.
Junior.
Exactly right. Always great to see you.
yeah.
Great to see you,
Well,
Charmaine
He like
Rankins.
well,
that.
that
Welcome to the
smile got
show.
bigger than his.
I know, right? Always,
Uh-huh.
always. He
That
shows
smile got
all.
bigger than that beard.
Hey, every time she shows up, he shows all 32. So yeah, always great to see you. Welcome to the show. Charmaine Rankins, welcome to the show. Good to see you as well. Listen, I want to continue with the antagonist piece because I want to make sure that we're digging deep into this. Chris said something that I thought was important because we talked about it a few weeks back, and it's honesty. Now, do I compromise honesty for your feelings? How
No,
you feel about
Yeah.
no.
They-
Same.
and because I want to make sure that we're diving into this because Charlotte made a good point. She said we got to use words like we and not you. But what if you did something that I need to address?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we're harnessing the right version of the conversation when we're diving into this. So do I compromise my honesty to preserve feelings when it comes down to certain situations that are affecting the team? And I'm not just talking just boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, husband and wife. I'm also talking the team. When you're looking at a project management team, if Roland ain't pulling his weight, do I go to Roland and say, "Hey, bro, I need you to step your game up," right? Because I feel we were doing good. I don't know what's going on. Maybe that should spawn us to a different conversation. How do you guys feel about that?
I think you should use all of. It's not one of those what's your pronoun things, but it's one of those where if I'm messing up,
Cannot with you.
Boy, he be slick with it, don't he?
He is
if
who
if,
he
if,
is.
if I'm the
Get
Just
one,
right
slide
on
it
in
in
there.
real quick.
but if I'm the one messing up, it can't be like, bruh, we this, that, and the other. You got to say, dude, some like as men, and that's one of the problems with men. We're too doggone sensitive to where you can't tell them anything because, yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Mm.
Where women raising men, sometimes you don't allow them to mature emotionally, so they can't take criticism, they can't take correction, they can't take some of those things.
I'm a product of that.
Exhibit.
So you got to
I'm a product of that.
place blame. Men accept blame, and we have to understand that. Okay, if you don't want the blame put on you, don't take the responsibility. Because when it comes to being a man, that means you are accepting the responsibility.
Can I use it? Can I substitute a word, sir? Can we say men have to accept responsibility, not accept blame? Because I'm trying. I want to. I want us. I don't. Me personally, I don't like the word blame, right? blame carries such a negative connotation. If I did wrong, I need to accept responsibility for what I did wrong, right? Um, just my thoughts. If
Okay.
you don't have to use it if you don't
Right,
want
that's fine.
to. Okay,
I mean, they synonyms pretty much.
right.
I mean,
But
for lack of a better term, but I mean, they kind of both mean the same thing. You
right.
got to take
See,
responsibility for the weight you're not pulling. You cannot take credit for the win if you are not willing to take responsibility for the L.
Mm-hmm.
and I agree with that, but I don't like to
Means I
give
don't agree.
any. It's not that I don't agree. I don't want to leave any room for wordplay for the narcissist.
Mm.
Because we
Ooh.
have those that play with these words and like I'm sorry you feel that way. Nah, brother, you sorry. Be sorry for what you did, not because I feel that way. No, just be real. But we have narcissists out there that hide behind words, so they're afraid of words. Like, and I understand what you're saying because you're a conversationalist and you understand how words changes the impact of what's being said. But some of us got to take responsibility and blame at the same. Because if I'm the blame, if I'm the reason the shit sunk, I'm the reason. Like let's just be 100, you know. But we do understand. Like for instance, everybody seen the movie Titanic, right? The captain went down with the boat because he took responsibility. But the joker who was up there not paying attention that allowed them to run into that didn't spot the iceberg fast enough for them to move and make a informed decision, he's actually to blame. So there is a difference. It's your fault, but the captain takes responsibility and goes down with the ship. You know, but some of us just got to take blame, man.
Yeah.
And saying that, I had to get my comment before Chris so I could say this, right? Because along with this, only thing this conversation just brought out just now is that I know we in 2022, but some of you mothers got to get out the way when other men starts telling your son to be tough and suck it up, because some of it is not about being mean or not knowing how to handle emotion. As men, in order to take responsibility, sometimes you got to learn to take the licks and keep on moving. Sometimes you don't have time to go in the corner and cry. You got to accomplish mission first, then we can go cry, because these bills got to be paid. My feelings are hurt, but Time Warner they asking on the same day every month. They're not changing. So I cry about it later, but I got to get my stuff. But I had to get that done before Chris started talking. Y'all know.
I like it. I like it. I like it.
All right, any other thoughts?
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to Miss Charlotte Jordan over here. Same thing. Like she's saying we versus the you. So okay, so wifey ain't changed it. Right, wifey supposed to change the litter box. It ain't been changed in 7 days. This is just a scenario. I don't even like cats. We don't have no cats. All right. So it ain't me. So at the end of the 7 days, like it's stinking in the house. Right? That's her job. So why do I gotta go and be like, hey, this house would smell a whole lot better if we take out the litter box. No, that's you. You need to take out the litter box. Like, why? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why do we gotta make? And I'm stirring the pot a little bit.
We got you.
Why do we have to succumb to all of the feelings and kind of bring ourselves as part of the solution when it's something that they know? They in the house with me. You smell the cat box too. That ain't a we issue. That's a you issue. So go ahead, Roland.
See,
Fool
and
me, brother.
I had to look up the word blame, and all it does is assess fault so that you can assess responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it goes right back to the same thing. But when it comes to
when you the word fault already has a negative connotation.
no, it doesn't. You know who it has a negative connotation to?
What
The
I'm
one that's
saying
at fault.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like the word fault automatically triggers like, oh, you attacking me. No, I'm saying you did this, so let's fix it so we can move on. But a lot of people can't see their fault in things when you address it. If anything, they're going to try to find something that you did that's worse. So that way they can remove some of they're going to deflect.
Yes, I
So
agree.
But can we be honest? If it's a partnership or work relationship or whatever the case may be, maybe I need some new team members. If you can't take your part of the responsibility, because what you're not going to do is make me take responsibility for my part and your part. We will not.
thank you.
Yeah.
He
No,
just he
sir.
just he just
Wait a
took
minute.
all the gloves off.
See, and that's how. So, like one day, Tawami, son, young Timothy here, he was helping me move. I had a refrigerator in my upstairs closet, and he was helping me move it. So as I said, you gonna get the front or the back, and as we moving it downstairs, I kind of stumbled, but because it kind of slipped, and I blamed him, but it was my fault.
Right.
So I blame. Well, if you slow down, so it's like sometimes you just shift the blame or the fault because you don't want to be the person of responsibility for the negative thing that happened.
Yeah, so I'm just being
There
honest.
we go.
I was stirring the pot just a little bit. Listen, I agree with Charlotte. By the way, I think there are times when we need to soften the effects of a conversation, but I also believe that there are times when I need to speak directly to my partner. I think that's important to understand. Just like I gave the example at the team, there are times where we can look at our performance collectively and say we need to do better, and there are times I need to go talk to Chris and say, "Hey, bro, I need you to step it up just a little bit." And I think both of those scenarios are honest, and it is also intentional because there are times to where we need to address everybody, but then there are times that I just need to address a person. Speaking of which, we talk about relationships and we started off by asking like where did you learn relationships? Well, last week we talked about identity, right? Having a good understanding of who you are. And I said it takes both the father and the mother to help me get a good holistic perspective of my identity. Gentlemen, in your opinion, is there a connection between identity and the way I behave in relationships? If so, what is it?
Whew. First of
This is
all,
the part where
yes.
I listen.
No, I'm gonna say first of all, yes. However you want to take this conversation, right? Uh, but for the sake of living in the world we live in, let's be real, right? I I understand how to be sensitive to the idea that we have people of different uh, orientation or whatever the case may be that ascribes to different pronouns than what you know lines up with what you were born with. I understand that, but in the aspect of a male and a female, if you a male who like females, unfortunately, we can't have those type of identity crises. You gotta know what you are, who you are, bro, because you have a responsibility. You can't you can't begin to identify the problems in your relationship until you can understand and identify just naturally your roles. Because that's you know, my wife makes it known she a thug at heart. She from ATL, Shawty. You know, a town stomp and all that. Thunderclap back in the night. But and I get it, but there is zero scenarios that I can think of that will cause me, unless I go to my grave, that will cause me to leave my wife to have to fight her own battles against another man or something like that. Someone coming to the house, I ain't gonna go, baby, you a thug. Sorry, I guess he gonna have to get both of us because it's going down. Like that's just that's I'm just talking that's just a biological understanding of our role as a protector. It is what it is. Like you got it. We just got to be honest with identity, right? We can go from who you are culturally or who you are physically. That is just you got to be real. You got if you man, you got to provide and you got to protect at the bare minimum.
See, but
Go ahead, bro. I see you.
I think that we have grown under some people who taught us some things that may not work in our households. Like in my household, growing up, my grandmother said you won't need women but for certain things, and she cooked and all this other stuff. So growing up, I thought, well, it's the woman's job to cook and to clean and to train the kids. In my household now, I'm the cook. I clean. Now, and I won't be crazy to say I'm the most masculine fella in the world, act like I don't get my nails done and all that other stuff. Whereas some people will be like, "Oh, you acting like a little punk." No, Negro, I like my hands nice. I like my feet done. It
I said
has
that's
nothing
called
to do with it.
self-care.
Thank you. And whereas some people they'll be like, "Oh, you supposed to be looking rough and smelling yourself," and I'm like, "Nah," but I'm comfortable in my identity. I know who I am, so I know I'm provider. That doesn't go away. But when it comes to some other things, I would be crazy if my wife pays the bills better than me. She manages money, and I'm just gonna buffalo it since I say I earn the money. I'm the man, and then I'm just gonna let everything fall. But that's what some people do because that's their identity in their head, which in their relationship it doesn't work like that.
Hmm.
Here's a connection. I think I've always said that you have to know who you are first before you get in a relationship with someone. I did it bass backwards the first time and this time. I got in a relationship with my current wife, not really knowing who I was. Um, fortunate, fortunately for us and for me, that when I really did come into my own and really find my purpose and know who I was, she happened to be the right person for me based off of my purpose and based off of the type of person that I needed in my life, and I was that for her as well. So we just kind of got lucky. I guess in a sense, but I would just tell people, when it comes to identity and relationships, that there is a connection. Like if you don't know who you are as a man, you're not going to know what type of woman you need for your life. You know what I mean? Because if you're bringing her into your life, she needs to have a role, just like you have your role, and those roles need to be clearly defined and articulated and understood between both parties before that relationship goes to a certain level. So there's definitely a connection between your identity and relationships.
I like it. I like it. Chris, I think you're waiting on me to go, sir. So I'm gonna be obedient and go. I got it. You're in receive
I'm
mode right now.
listening. I'm
I
I'm
got you. I
I'm
got you.
learning. I'm
I
learning.
got you. I got you. Hey, and before I get started, man, I want to make sure I acknowledge everybody in the chat again. Shout out in the chat. Greatly appreciate the value that you're adding. Continue to add your thoughts and your perspective because we definitely are incorporating them into our conversations. I gotta agree with everything you guys said, but I like to look at it from this perspective. I think in order for me to call myself getting into a committed relationship, it requires me to be psychologically and emotionally healthy. If I am not psychologically healthy and I have gaps in my character, then what I would end up doing is using somebody else to fill those gaps. If I'm not emotionally stable, then every time I get caught up in my feelings, I am looking to somebody else to pacify my emotions. So when we start talking about our identity, I believe it is imperative for everybody to have a good understanding of their identity because I can't pour from an empty cup. So we have to avoid tying ourselves to somebody else and then making that person my God because that person I have pegged to supply all of my needs. If I have if I have self-conscious needs, then I'm going to depend on that person to fill the void. How do I look in this? How do I look in that? Stop asking people that. Stop doing that. I tell you what, a better way to do it, just put it on and parade around. If that person likes it, if it's in that person's character, they will respond and say, "Hey, I like that. That looks good." But when you go around soliciting feedback, that is a very dangerous game to play. That's just my initial thoughts. I leave that part there. But I just believe that when we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't have a good psychological foundation, if we don't have a good emotional foundation, then the only thing we're doing is we're looking for someone who has the ability to fill in our gaps. And that's a very dangerous game to play. Young Timothy, I think you had something you want to add, sir.
As, this part of the conversation really triggers for me because as a people, as a community, eh, we have to be honest with part of the way that they succeeded at destroying our families. Anybody could add whoever they are to the end of that, right? Uh, but part of it is limiting your identity to starting as a slave. We have to come out of the framework of thinking that my history starts coming off of slave ship. Well, somebody had to get put on that slave ship. Now, who were those people that were put on? Because when they come off, they just slaves. That's all we know. That's all we're taught. That's all we're given. And then we have to dig and hope that there's a family story running around out there that teaches us of somebody great during the time of either slavery or during the time of the underground or during the time of emancipation or during the time of the freedom walks. But we're hoping for a story that ties to my last name so that I can have some self-worth and identity to walk around this world in. But we have to stop allowing people to cause us to dismiss the conversation when we say, can we just be real about who we are? Why everybody want us to be different? You telling me that I'm an ancient Egyptian. You telling me I'm an ancient Moor. You telling me that we were Muslims. You telling me we were all of that. Which one? Somebody, let's narrow it down. Let's break it down. And that conversation has to be had throughout our community without any extra agendas.
Yeah.
Because that's hurting us. Where's my self worth if I'm nobody but dude who grandfather came off a ship?
Yeah. And I think it's important. I think it's important to understand your history. I also think it's equally important to create history as well. And I think the idea when it comes down to identity in relationships is when we instill in our children a healthy identity base, then what happens is that they can function properly in relationships, because what you'll find is that they're not looking to their partner as their savior. You're only going to get one savior in this lifetime. He already died on the cross, right? So with that being said, now it's your opportunity to do the work, and doing the work does not mean that you blame anybody for anything. And I think part of that, getting back to what we kind of mentioned previously, because we started dealing with this, part of that is understanding how to regulate my emotions so that I can communicate effectively within the scope of relationship. So, gentlemen, communicating in functional relationships, what does that look like?
That is
Uh,
whole bunch of good stuff. It means that when one person is talking, the other person is shutting up and listening. Um, it means that there's constant feedback. There's proper uses of body language. You know what I mean? All of those things like that. I think communication, this goes back to what Roland said, just part of the relationship piece. Like, you have to have that communication piece in a functional relationship. Like if your communication is trash, your relationship probably is trash. Like you're only going to be able to go so far in a relationship with fun times at night. It's only going to take you so far. You know what I mean? And just enjoying each other company. Eventually, there's going to be some chaos. There's going to be a bump in the road, and you guys are going to have to communicate with each other. And so you guys, and if you don't know how to communicate with each other, it's going to lead to bigger. It can lead to bigger and more problems. So you have to learn how to be around each other and communicate with each other effectively so you both can understand each other's point of view and where each other is coming from. And you have, like you say, you have to know when to say things too. Like you said, bad news don't get better with time. There's also a time and place to have conversations as well. The more you build in your relationships and the more you work on your communication and relationships, the better you will be at communicating um, and having a good functional relationship.
I agree. I also think respect goes a long way
Mm.
when it comes to communication in a relationship. You have to respect the person enough to communicate in a way that they receive it. Because I know I'm not one of them people where you're gonna be and doing all that. That go somewhere going to talk to somebody else because I'm not receiving it. I already know because it's combative to me and it's putting me in a combative state. So I don't want to be there. So if you know I don't like it and you going there, hey, let's just talk about it later. Like when I was an NCO, and then they gave us female soldiers, and the female soldier coming there boo-hooing and crying and stuff. I'm not all in touch with my emotions like that. And this ain't the time for that. And as a soldier, I would say, no, go to the bathroom, wash your face. And when you finish, come back and we can talk. But I'm not doing all this because we trying to communicate. And if you setting up barriers to communication and we're trying to communicate, it's not helpful. So in functional relationships, you got to respect the other person, respect yourself, and realize who you're talking to, as well as what they may deem as barriers to communications. Also, not you can't just have it your way where you just get everything and it got to be my way, everything going this way. No, because like I talk with my hands and I get excited when I talk. So, but I'm not yelling, and I'm one of them people where I know what I'm doing when I'm being passive aggressive. I can be passive aggressive with the best of them and say I ain't even say nothing. But yes, I just told you in a nice way to go fly a kite. That's a better term for it.
Thank you for the kite reference.
Yeah.
You get better at it too.
Yeah.
I, this is where I'm transparent. I have no idea what communication in a functional relationship looks like because I have never seen it.
Mm.
I really haven't. I've seen it's my way or the highway.
Mm.
I have never seen a I mean, I see it with my fellas. I see it with my peers. But coming up, I never saw that. I never saw that at all. My base understanding and what I believe in my utopian naive mindset is that communication in a functional relationship means that two people are willing to let go of their egos and listen to each other without having to cap a clever rebuttal to reply. You actually listening to understand where the other person is coming from, and the other person isn't attacking you. He's just basically saying what he's feeling. She's basically saying what she's feeling. It's not that you're a bad person. They don't hate you. It's just you did something that we need to have a discussion about. And it has to be a mutual discussion. Like it can't be me just talking and you shutting down, or me talking and you trying to overtalk me. You understand what I'm saying? It has to be two people that are willing to listen to each other.
Yeah.
At least that's in my mind.
Yeah, it's if you look at it, a lot of the if you look at the communication skills that you see on this panel, whether it be on Fridays or whether it be on Wednesday, right? A lot of those communication skills are parallel and are used in relationships with your spouse or with your girlfriend too, or your woman or with the fellas. Like we know that no matter what, when men talk, that there's a certain point that we can go. If we go past that point, then it's going to be some friction. You know what I mean? So men, we automatically understand that. You know what I mean? At the same time, we respect each other, and all of us up here have shared our ego to the side, so we can come up here and disagree on some points and still be able to take the conversation to the next level. You know what I mean? Same things in the relationship. I don't talk to my wife like she's a piece of trash. You know what I mean? I talk to her with respect, communicate with her, and talk to her and communicate with her in an effective way that works best for, like Roland said, for her to receive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's part of the give and take right there. Cause like I said, being in the military and eating like this, and it don't work well in relationships. But the amount of, if you look at the respect and how we operate on this panel, a lot of these skills are transferable to your personal relationships on your job and with the woman too.
Young Timothy, what you got, sir?
I agree with what everybody said. Just a little different take on it. Like I think back on because all of us, Chris, at this point, you're honorary service member since you know all the lingo by now. We done gave you all the different keys and clues to talking like a vet.
I don't know if I'm supposed to
Nah,
use it, but I know it.
nah, don't use it. But nah. But a lot of us didn't always have the luxury in the military to have a critical conversation beforehand with a battle buddy before you got thrown in the mission. Some of us got thrown at a brigade detail. You had no idea who this NCO was up there talking to everybody like everybody was children, because that's how he talked to his infantry soldiers, and you ain't infantry. So in your mind, you're like, I don't know who this he talking. So these different relationship building opportunities don't always happen for us who served in the military, right? Sometimes you just have to do it, and you learn later. But when it comes to like, if I decide to go into business right now, I will. My first thought would probably be Roland to try to go into business with, because I know him. I think most of these, yeah, I think most of these critical conversations need to happen sometimes before you get into these relationships, because it's hard for me to effectively listen when I don't understand how you speak or who you are. Sometimes just knowing that that coach is from Georgia, when he says certain things, I understand it's an idiom that comes from where he's from. Knowing I'm from New York, when I say son, I'm not trying to son you or demean you or but I don't say that no more, but I'm just saying, that's an idiom in New York when I was growing up. So those things are important. I think a lot of times we jump into she fine, so I'm just getting into this relationship. But I don't know nothing about it. So when we get into an argument, we're taking low blows at each other because we don't know how to communicate with each other.
Mm.
We don't understand each other. We don't know each other.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to take that different avenue to it. Some of it, we need to start having these conversations, like critical conversations before you get in a serious relationship. If you're trying to date and marry, because the purpose of dating to me is to marry, all right, I got to know that we believe the same thing. And though we both say we believe the Bible, but if you Church of Christ and I'm Baptist, that's not lining up, because someone gonna be a little more conservative in their beliefs, or vice versa. No matter what that denomination or what belief system you're in, we got to know that we can hit common ground when it comes. Because once you start having kids, you're gonna be fighting over what your kid gonna be.
That's right.
That needs to be figured out.
Yeah.
Beforehand, we need to have these conversations early.
And you know what? I want to piggyback off. I want to start right where you ended, because I think these conversations need to happen at home. We need to create a foundation within the household of structured communication that allow people to speak honestly, express their emotions in such a way that it's not antagonistic or intentionally offensive to the person that you're talking to. Don't use your emotions as a weapon. That's first and foremost. That's one of the first things that people need to understand. Just because you raise your voice don't mean that I'm going to change my opinion. So this is one of the things that we need to learn at home. We need to learn how to have mature conversation to where we can express our opinion, but we don't hang our hat on the fact that you need to agree with my opinion. We need to move away from the idea of agree or disagree. Who cares? If you agree or disagree, consider it. I think that's one of the things that causes a rift in the space of communication. I go back to the project team because it's simple to understand these relationship tips when it comes down to work, because they pay your paycheck. So you ain't going to fight against who paying your bills. So when it comes down to it, you don't go to work and communicate in such a degree that you cause drama within the team. In fact, Your security within the team is based upon how well you gel. But once you become a dysfunctional member of the team, meaning that you're the only person dysfunctioning, everybody else works well together. Well, the project manager can come in and say, hey, we're going to remove you from the team, and I got this other person on the bench who wants to be a part of that team. See, we can get fired from work, but we fear getting fired from relationship. And I think that's the thing that we need to understand. There's these things, contempt. Contempt is not good when it comes down to relationship. Intentional, malicious criticism is not good when it comes down to relationship. Stonewalling is not good when it comes down to relationship. Stonewalling is choosing to be quiet because you can't win in the discussion. So I shut down. Shut down is just as bad as criticism. I'm saying all these things because it needs to be understood within the space of, relationship. It is a mandate that you find a way to communicate in a fashion that is healthy, and it is symbiotic. In other words, both parties benefit from it. Again, if you get time, it's a thick book, but it's a good book. Go read Ray Dalio, right? Ray Dalio Principles. He calls it thoughtful disagreements, and I stole it because I believe in it and I use it in my coaching practices. We have to learn how to have thoughtful disagreements. If you I don't have to agree with everything that Tawami says, but at the end of the day, do I use logic to consider what he is actually saying? Or am I stuck in the space understanding what my emotions are telling me and I'm reacting based upon my feelings? If my feelings is driving the train, then we're not having thoughtful disagreement. He is logically having a conversation with me and I am irrationally having a conversation with him. So I use that as a segue to dive into this facet: emotions and feelings in functional relationships. How important are they and what do they look like?
And I think on this one, I'm just gonna keep it simple. Understand your son. I think one thing I never thought of until just now was maybe I should talk to, because as much as I like to think I evolved from 15 to now, uh, maybe I should go talk to my sisters and my brothers and my friends and my cousins growing up to understand me. How do you view me? Like when you take your girlfriend back home, we all veterans. We all brought a girl home that wasn't from our city, you know, try to show them our city and where we grew up. Uh, and when you go back home and you bring these girls home, your friends start talking and you hear stories. You like, hey, I forgot about that story. They remember things about us that we probably weren't honest with then, or some things we suppressed because you know we made our decisions to get away from certain things and leave some stuff in the past, whatever the case may be. So maybe and I'm thinking that it might be good that I get back in contact with a lot of people to understand me, how they view me and how they see me, because then I can be honest with my emotions and my feelings. Because before I can understand yours, I got to understand mine and know my trigger points, know what makes me tick, so I can articulate that properly.
I think the problem with that though is
Mhm.
they knew Lil Tawami, Lil T. Just like when I go home, they knew Lil Ro. They don't know the grown man that got all these kids and grandkids and make my own money, and they know. Remember, because you got some cousins that when you think about, you think a lot. Man, I remember when we used to have to spend the night and nobody wanted to sleep with you because you peed the bed. That's what you remember. And now that Negro almost 40 years old, and you don't really know them. So for them to try to convey who you are as a man, it would be a disservice to you.
Can I clarify? Because you're right. I don't want to go into that and say, tell me about me, you know. But in those conversations, understanding how they see you. Because to me, I feel as much as we've grown, those things and those situations, those from back then, are still a part of what molds and shape what we see today. And we have to accept that. You know what I mean? I may not have liked who I was, the dude who fought first, had a conversation later after I done got in trouble, right? May not be always proud of that guy, but I remember they'll bring up those stories, and I'll start to remember those situations. Man, I still that right there still makes me tick. Like, because I never understood that, or never dwelled on that, so I never dealt with that, and it still follows me. So that's the only reason why I said that, because sometimes the past can remind us of things that we probably just didn't deal with that might still be ticklish.
Yeah. So let me interject real quick, because I want to make sure that we're on task, because we still got 2 questions we got to entertain. And no, you're good. You're good. Those questions are going to be pivotal, but I want to make sure that we get the emotions and the feelings conversation over with, started and over with. So, what is the difference between emotions and feelings, and how do they manifest themselves in functional relationships? I got you, Chris. Anybody?
Oh, I thought Chris was about to ask.
No, sir. I'm learned. Like I said, it's difficult. This is one. Like I said in the beginning, this is one of those conversations where I learn, because I'm just now learning what it's like to be or even see a functional relationship. So these type of conversations are conversations that I never had. So I would rather listen to y'all than, you know what I'm saying, than add my little such and such. You understand what I'm saying? I want to learn.
Hmm. Hmm.
Any
I
thoughts?
think. Go ahead.
No, any thoughts? Go ahead.
Emotions and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions and feelings. Feelings. Ah, man. Nope. Go ahead, Timothy. I see. You're saying something, because I think emotions are tied to your inner being and how you handle things. I mean, because whereas I don't know, this are they separate? Are they different? You throwing monkey wrenches out here for us.
All
But
right.
I think when it comes to feelings, a lot of people talk about I feel this way and I feel that way, and it may come from an emotional place. Whereas when I'm speaking of my emotions are tied to my inner me and things that I take personally, I guess. Because feelings, I don't care about. I'm not one of. I'm one of the people where if your feelings are hurt, I'm not the person to come to, because I really don't dive in that arena, because it's like, okay, we tripping about your feelings, how you felt about a situation, or how you. It's like, because to me that's almost allowing somebody in a space of weakness, and you telling them about it, your feelings. So I'm gonna jump off this one.
We stumped the minister. Oh my God.
Um,
Yeah.
I I think in the sense that they're in a lot of ways they're interchangeable. Um, I think sometimes when you look at emotions, they can sometimes be a little bit more. Um, I think sometimes they can be more intense, whereas like feelings may be a little bit more stable and may kind of last longer. You know what I mean? Like if you were feeling a certain way, like man, I feel sad. It may last a long time. Whereas like, when it comes to like an emotion or something, I think that's maybe a little bit more intense and maybe accompanied by some physical sensations or I don't know. That was my best. That was my best stab at it.
Yeah, I like
but
it. I like it.
but wouldn't
Hey,
a feeling have to have an emotion attached to it?
Mm.
Or
Because if
would it
you
be the other
feel
way around?
well, mm,
because they can be they use interchangeably a
That's
lot. So
see,
They
that's
you
why
know,
they
I'm
are.
like,
asking.
but
See,
they're
but it,
different for a reason.
So is
I,
bath and bathe. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah, and tomato
you.
and yeah.
But I think so when you look at emotion, right? And I'm trying to because I'm not the walking thesaurus in this group. We see the man in the middle up top. But I feel like emotion is something that's true to you, to you at the moment, right? Because it's an automatic chemical response, right, to certain things. But I can operate in my feelings based off of an emotion you made me feel 2 months ago, and I'm just in my so so my feelings sometimes shape how I operate based off of my perception. So that's why I think the two differences are. So because my emotions was all into this. You walk into a church and they have good praise and worship. You might join because your emotions got filled up during that moment, and then you find out 2 years later that they ain't teaching worth of nothing, and you've been sitting somewhere stagnant because you operated off of your emotional response on you in your now you in your feelings because
You
you
going to
don't.
my church?
But your
I'm just
feelings come like that, right? And your
Your
emotions.
emotions.
Oh,
I
I
think
love
your
this.
emotions, like when something happen, you like, man, you get like emotional, like if you're
hmm
talking about church, you get that emotional. You like, oh man, you're praising, you're worshiping, and you're doing whatever it is you're doing, and then that emotion, I think, for a few days you still got that feeling, but the emotion is no longer there. But you still have that feeling of, yeah, man, I went to church, it was a good service, and here it is Tuesday, and I'm still feeling the after effects of what those emotions that I had on Sunday. So I don't know.
Can I just
Yeah.
I want to simplify it real quick.
Simplify it
I'm
for us,
gonna make
coach.
it. I'm gonna break
Let
it
me mute
down
my mic.
Barnes style, right? Your emotions work inwardly out. Your feelings work outwardly in. So who was it? Charmaine. So she is 100% correct. Your emotions stem from your subconscious. So the more you put into this thing and turn it habitual, it actually goes deep into your subconscious being. Your subconscious being at that particular point, it emotes a signal. You ever heard people say you attract at the level in which you are, right? So at the level of your emotions, you attract those things. This is why creators can emotionalize the outcome of what it is that they want to create. What we do in common English lexicon is we interchange the terminology, don't even realize that we're doing, right? So when we say we're in our feelings, sure, and this is what we're trying to say is a person is a little disappointed based upon a thing. Well, you are literally a walking sensory being. All you do is gather information coming from the outside world, right? You're sensing. You see what I'm saying? So you can have a feeling of a thing. Have you ever walked in a room and you had a feeling about the room? You sense the room. That's what's happening at that particular point in time. So you're attracting all of this information and you're drawing a conclusion based upon your sensory nodes. So that being said, that is the difference when it comes down to a relationships. What we should be doing is constantly filling this thing with the goodness of the word, right? So that at this level we are emoting, we're sending out vibrational frequencies at the level in which the word is actually driving us. Then from an outside perspective, we can sense the emotions of our partner and we turn around and say, "What's wrong? Are you okay? Is everything all right?" So that's just a real quick example that we have to understand. A lot of times, what we do, and I kind of mentioned it previously, when we use our emotions as a weapon, what we do a lot of time is we get the wrong signal because it is driven by something else, and then we respond in such a way that drives a wedge in between the cohesiveness of the two people. So again, remember your emotions stem from within. This is where you attract at the level of your subconscious. So what we have to do is constantly elevate that so we're vibrating at a higher frequency. Your feelings, in turn, is the information that you're drawing in and how you relate to that information. So that's the thing. Don't ever get to the point to where your feelings drive decisions, because they will always lead you down the wrong path. You use it as a facet of your decision making process. It should be multiple things that factor into your decision making. Great job, Charmaine. Thank you for bringing that to the table. And I feel I don't know. I'm gonna get chastised after the show, y'all, just so that you know. All right, moving forward. Question number one, because we're starting to run down on time here. What is a parent's responsibility as it pertains to their children's current and future relationships?
So when I was thinking on this question, I had to think of it in two ways because you're talking about my infant or adolescent children or my adult children. Now I don't have no adult children. Roland is the one with a 38-year-old. But uh, when you look at the different stages in life, the responsibility is different. I think for a child, uh, your responsibilities are showing an example in the home of what this looks like. Character building so that they can, learn how to operate effectively in relationships. And then three is having those hard conversations with your child while they're still in the home. You know, and as our children get older, I think the conversations get different and get a little harder. Um, as an adult, I think it's a little different. You got to be honest because I think we get so accustomed as children sheltering our children from certain things that we don't want them to have to experience or deal with young or when they're adults. You just got to give them the grit, like because they dealing with the same adult stuff you're dealing with. Um, be available, be available to your adult kids when they need you when they're gonna call on you. You got to have the time that you can talk with them because they need you. You know, that's why we having these conversations right now because fathers were needed in our adult children lives too. And then lastly, be prepared that they're not gonna see relationships the same way you wanted them to see it when you were bringing them up.
Mm.
Understand that they became their own individual, and now we got to operate from where they are and figure out how to give them the right advice. And I'll leave it right there.
Um, I think as a parent, I got three sons. My youngest is 17, my oldest is 27. So, um, like like he said, it's different, a lot of different range in there, and how you have the conversation when they're an adolescent versus when they're 27 is different. The times were different when my son was 27 versus my 17-year-old as he's about to transition out next year. So, a lot of things are different. My the way I think is different now than I did when my 27-year-old left the house, years ago and back in 2013. So I had a couple things down. One is control what you can control. You're not going to be able to control everything, when it comes to your children's relationships. They're going to date some people that you may or may not like. And that's just something that comes along with it. I think that we need to set boundaries as parents, and we need to teach that when it comes to relationships. What are some things that they shouldn't or maybe should expect out of relationship, setting boundaries in the relationship for themselves. um we have to offer guidance and support to our kids. And my son called me yesterday looking for some advice, and I was like, man, Christmas came early, because it was really one of the first times that he's 27 and really was like, Dad, I got some advice. And so um it felt great, you know what I'm saying? So guidance and support, and then modeling. Um I don't have the perfect relationship now. I didn't have the perfect relationship then, but one thing that I think that we can do as parents is to model and be a good example of what a decent human being is supposed to be, if nothing else. So, and if you are married, to model a good relationship or something that someone else said that your kids or someone may want to emulate.
I guess Chris waiting because he ain't got no kids. See, I know. I think people need to stop saying, I treat all my kids the same. No, you don't. I got a bunch of kids. Some of them get on my doggone nerves. Some of them don't. Some of them say this one the favorite. Others say that's the favorite. I
They
think,
don't need the same thing.
right. And each relationship is different. I think one of the things when it comes to children and parents, and be the example. Whatever it is, be the example you want them to emulate. Stop trying to be their friends. That's not your friend. I know they may, like, I got grown kids. I can go kick it with my kids. Like, I was over there with my daughter and my grandkids today, but she knows she's not my friend. She knows I'm dad. Period. Now we can talk about some things and joke this, that, and the other because she grown with a whole husband and family. But I think as long as I keep it to where I'm a standard setter in her eyes, she understands that when she comes to me, she's not just getting what she wants to hear. She's getting what she should do. Even if I fail in said area before, hopefully I've learned from that. I don't teach her where I failed. I teach her where I came from and where I'm going to. And I think teaching when it comes to relationships, you teach your children what to accept, what not to accept. You teach them and you show them. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to be responsible enough to hold everything in to where they say, man, am I being disrespected in this relationship? And if I'm being disrespected in this relationship, it's time for me to take my hands off of it, because at no time should I be consistently disrespected. If something happens and is corrected, that's different than something continual. And so that's what, you teach your children for me.
I like it. I like it. Listen, I agree 100%. I think as a parent, if my child is still in a home, I need to teach them how to function in relationship, period. I need to teach them how to be a good friend. I need to teach them the law of reciprocity. I need to teach them what compassion looks like. I need to also, and I think Uncle Junior mentioned it, Natasha mentioned it as well. I also need to teach them boundaries, right? Because that's important to understand. When they transition from just having, friend relationship to a boyfriend girlfriend relationship, I need to kind of teach them what that looks like. Teach them the purpose of relationship as well, right? Help them to understand something. Have the difficult conversations with your child that you did not have when you were growing up, right? When that child becomes an adult, you transition from the teach and the guidance counselor into the advisor. When they're struggling with something mentally, initiate the conversation. Sit down, son. Sit down, daughter. Let's have a conversation. I see you're struggling with something. What's going on? It's not, me wanting to be in your business. It's just me wanting to be that sounding board for you so that you have a place to vet your thoughts, right? Well, when me and your mom went through that, this is what we looked at doing. And I have to go back to what Uncle Junior said, what Roland said, what Timothy said, right? We got to model it. If I'm teaching it and I'm not doing it, the only thing I'm doing is lying to my kid. So I have to model the same thing. Don't I also want to say this as well, and I think it's important because everybody grows and evolve. Don't ever allow yourself to be held hostage to your past. If you grew from that, be from it. That's just it. We can talk about it, sure. We can relate to it, but that's no longer who I am. So I think that's important to understand. So these are all of the things that we can teach to our children to kind of help set the conditions for the relationships that they find themselves in or will find themselves in the future. Real quick, gentlemen, last question. How can I achieve functionality without compromising my identity as a woman or as a man? Yep, I see them.
I guess that's where you established whatever you was. I guess that's where you establish boundaries. This is what I need from you. Tell me what you need from me, and let's move from there. But don't try to be me and you at the same time, because it's not gonna work. Like I always say, you're gonna have to move, because two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. That's the law of physics. I need this, you need this. Okay, let's move forward for something bigger than us. That's me speaking in my utopian, naive mindset.
Chief.
I think that's just real. Oh, you was gonna say something, my bad.
No, go ahead.
Oh, oh my bad. Uh, I think that's real. Uh, as real as you can get. I think first thing for me is always the idea of we both have to have un, a unit, a unified way of thinking when it comes to what a male or a female comes to relationships, right? Uh, do we have the same belief of what a man does or what a man is and what a woman is and what a because you have to, because if not then we will step on each other's toes if what I believe I should be doing as a man you feel like you should be doing as a woman or whatever, vice versa. So those conversations need to be had, and those talks are important before we can move forward. I have to know that we can coexist in our ideology of life. That's how. That's how you keep from getting in relationships that are bound for toxic for being toxic. Um, because a lot of times we go based off because she look good. Let's be real. She look good, and I need me a trophy more than I need me a good partner.
Yep.
And that's some people's thought process.
Yeah.
So it gets toxic. A trophy, but she only wants it her way, and vice versa.
I, I think knowing who you are, knowing your function, knowing what you bring to the table. When you know self, then you can see what you will accept, will and won't accept. And when it comes to a partner, realize that when it comes to functionality, if we're functioning together, I know me, and you're telling me what you bring to the table. So now we gonna make a plan, and as we make a plan, we gonna set some standards. That way, we realize when we go contrary to the standards, one of us is trying to set new standards, and we didn't agree upon this. So now we got to revisit what we were talking about, what the plan was, because if we set new standards, we it's a whole new ball game. It's not what we started at. So now a conversation has to be had.
Absolutely. Uncle Junior, what you got, brother?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple of things. Not necessarily for an intimate relationship with the person, but I think it can work well. But just speaking about functionality in general, and I'm gonna start off with what the same thing Roland said: knowing who you are first of all. Knowing who you are is key. And then after that, you need to be moving in life with intentionality. You need to be intentional um, about who you are and all of those other things. And then you need to have boundaries. So I think, if I was to grab three things real quick, and how I can achieve functionality without compromising my identity, it would be to know who I am, be productive, and be intentional about the way I move in life, and then have boundaries.
I love it. I don't think mine is any different. I think it's number one, go on a journey of self discovery. Do that long before you tie yourself to somebody else's life and mess it up, or your life as well. Go on a journey of self discovery, learn who you are, have hard conversations with your parents, ask them difficult questions so that you can have a clear identity. Become psychologically and emotionally healthy first. Do that. Then afterwards, and you have to understand those aren't always the same thing, right? Going on a journey, right, to learn who you are does not make you emotionally and psychologically healthy. That has to be intentional. You have to do that level of work on yourself before you tie yourself to someone else. Before tying yourself to someone else, sit down and have a conversation. Talk about what relationship looks like. How do you handle relationship? What happens when adversity sets in? What about kids? How do you feel about kids? Have all of these conversations. Bring all of the difficult facets. What if I win the lottery tomorrow? What if you win the lottery? You know what I'm saying? Will you just skip town and not come back home? Will I find out by the news and you're in, someplace in, Mexico? These are things that we need to talk about. We need to talk about money. We need to talk about sex. We need to talk about family dynamics. You know, should I expect your mom and your daddy to intervene in our conversation whenever we have an issue? These are some of the things we need to talk about. Those boundaries are very necessary to establish, to adhere to. And I want to go back to what I said last week. We need to have a principle based belief system as well, because it's not about what your mom and your daddy did or what my mom and my daddy did. It's what we agreed the relationship to be. What's going to be the foundational doctrine that we base this relationship off of? If we do not have one, then we're just going to sway back and forth. Well, this is right and that is right, or this is right and that is right. The doctrine always tell you what's right. We conform to the doctrine as we compare it to different scenarios. So with that being said, shout out to young Timothy. Today is his birthday. I want to make sure I put that out before we get out there. So everybody tell
Happy
young.
birthday, sir.
Yeah.
He just turned 27. So no, I'm joking. So listen, listen. I want to make sure I
And
address everybody. We appreciate you guys. We thank you guys for joining us. We hope that you find value in this conversation. This conversation will be continued next week because we're talking about parents, right? You'll notice that it's a build. And again, I go back to what I said last week. I am in the spirit. At the end of all of this, there will be a question that somebody must answer. And once you answer that question, I am going to give you something for free. So, with that being said, you got to listen to all of them, though, because I can't tell you where that question is going to come from. So, let's listen. On behalf of the panel, the Hearts of Men podcast, our amazing chat, all of our followers, and if you're a part of, if this is your first time again, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, hit the love button, go ahead and share it with other people. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you the exact same time next week. Merry Christmas to you guys as well. Have a great weekend.